It's an honor and a privilege to welcome our first guest to the program this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, British Prime Minister David Cameron.
Letterman is sort of the ambassador to the U.S. television audience, and he's going to go off script and he's going to ask you something that you're not prepared for.
Letterman has an audience of more than 3 million people a night, so it does reach into a lot of American living rooms.
I thought it was an odd decision in a way to go on Letterman. Letterman can be quite sharp and acerbic, he's known for that.
He didn't exactly blow them away, but it was more than the score draw, and Downing Street seems perfectly happy about it this morning.
Politicians in American late-night talk shows have long gone hand in hand. Bill Clinton charmed voters by playing saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show before the 1992 presidential election. Arnold Schwarzenegger announced his decision to run for governor of California in 2003 on Jay Leno's Tonight Show. And more recently, President Obama appeared on David Letterman's Late Show, as did the London Mayor Boris Johnson. On Wednesday night, David Cameron became the first sitting British Prime Minister to appear on Letterman's show. His mission, to bang the drum for British business, building on the goodwill generated by the Olympic Games and encouraging American tourists and investors to look across the Atlantic to the UK.
Late night is New York. People who read the New York Times tends to be more intellectual. They're into politics, they're into business. Any politician, either running for office or in office, needs to be comfortable in multiple venues, from a hard interview to entertainment interview. And if you can banter effectively with David Letterman, chances are you'll be able to handle the tough interviews as well. Being cool under the lights of Broadway is important to anyone's success, be it from a UK Prime Minister to a US politician.
And how long have you been cutting your own hair?
Appearing on The Tonight Show isn't without risks. Boris Johnson was rendered almost speechless when Letterman asked him if he cut his own hair, and Cameron didn't get it all his own way either.
Letterman asked Cameron lots of questions about this country. It was a kind of eccentric citizenship test, and the Prime Minister failed on a couple of fronts. He didn't know the literal translation of Magna Carta, even though he knew that it was signed in 1215 on an island in the River Thames. He also didn't know who wrote Rule Britannia. He suggested Edward Elgar, which is not correct. But then again, I suspect a lot of people wouldn't have known the answer to that. And to be fair to David Cameron, he did get in a lot of his prepared lines about the success of the Olympics, about the British economy and British business. The question of whether loads of businessmen were sat there watching it intently and will now go off and sign a load of deals may not be the case.
I think most investors would be asleep. It's on pretty late at night, so I don't think it would have that sort of effect. Maybe it would persuade a few watching Americans that he was a genial sort of character. I think that's probably no more than that.
This appearance was about raising Britain's profile, but it was also about boosting Mr. Cameron's own profile in a country where many people still wouldn't recognise him on the street.
I don't think this has resonated widely in the US media, certainly not as widely as in the UK media. And I think for the average American viewer, those 3 million people tuning in, they were probably quite happy to watch David Cameron, but pretty keen to get on with the next act, which was another British one. It was Mumford & Sons. And Mumford & Sons may get a bigger bump in terms of album sales than David Cameron gets out of this appearance.
It takes some rock bands years to crack America, and it's fair to say David Cameron hasn't managed that just yet either. But the disaster that many commentators were predicting seems to have been averted. Mr. Cameron himself joked on David Letterman's show that his career might have ended there and then. That certainly doesn't seem to be the feeling today in Westminster. Daniel Garrahan, Financial Times, London.